Hello and welcome to another episode of the LendAPI Partner Podcast. My guest today is Tomas Campos, who is CEO and co-founder of Spinwheel Solutions. Tomas, welcome to the podcast.
Good to be here.
Now, let's start off with your origin story. How did Spinwheel Solutions get started?
Yeah, so my co-founder and I had this thesis. So we had spent the better part of a decade in our careers building fintech, pretty much on the fintech infrastructure, on the payment side. So building one of the world's largest payment networks. When you think about like processing and issuing, settlement, switching, all of the low level infrastructure to power payments. And we had this thesis when we looked at sort of the opportunities in infrastructure. We saw what had happened with like a Stripe or with like a Plaid when you really provide that infrastructure and the opportunity and the potential that it unlocks. And so we've always been at that level of sort of attacking the problems. And our core thesis was, well, if you look at sort of the household balance sheet today, the average household balance sheet of Americans, there's more liability accounts and more debt than there are assets and investments combined. But when we looked out there at the available infrastructure that was powering solutions, we didn't see anything out there that really had unlocked those possibilities or potentials like you have seen on the open banking side, or maybe like you'd seen on the payment side. So that was our core thesis. And as we dug deeper into this, it became really apparent to us that one, if you were to look at something like open banking that has, or really you could say had a transformative impact on fintech and finances in the US, the average American has, maybe 1 to 2 checking accounts or DDA accounts that they really use. Now, if you think about on the liability side, the average American has 6 or 7 liability accounts that they're managing at any given time, that they're active and open and managing. And so if you just look at that sort of scale and the impact, we realized that we could really have a massive, massive impact on the financial outcomes of Americans in the US if we built the right infrastructure. And what I mean by the right infrastructure, it was also that same time where we kept seeing innovative financial consumer apps failing. Any of these sort of apps that were really focused on helping people manage their money, or people being able to connect their accounts and streamline their payments, or reduce interest rates, or put some more cash in their pocket. A lot of those were failing. Not the sole reason, but one of the reasons that we saw over and over again was that the user experience and the cost to do so on the liability side was so hard to do, and it just didn't make sense. And so we sort of put those two things together and we said, listen, what if we applied our background that had been building fintech infrastructure for more than a decade and really try to tackle this problem? And we fundamentally believe that this problem is one of the biggest opportunities there is in fintech and fintech infrastructure out there. And so that was sort of, we were approaching it as a founding team. And then what happened was in the summer of 2019, my niece, who's pretty much like a sister to me, she graduated from college and was distraught about her student loan debt. And then, 4 months later, my younger sister got rejected for public service loan forgiveness. And so I had 2 family members who were really struggling with their debt and liabilities, and they're asking me for like, hey, what are the tools out there? How do I get smarter? How do I actually, manage my money appropriately? And that really just sort of resonated back with me to the same point I made earlier, which is there weren't really great solutions out there. And we fundamentally saw that it was because there wasn't the infrastructure to unlock or power these effectively. And so started the company and really started building that low level infrastructure that can unlock all these potentials. And we saw that there was really 3 problems that we needed to solve. One is how do you reduce the friction? So fundamentally, you can't ask for a username and password for 6 or 7 accounts. You'll stop after the second or third one. It's just that, there's a limit to how many times you can do that. Third, you have to remove the requirement that you have to reconnect every account every 60 days. That was another requirement that we had to address. And the third is the information that's available. You have to be able to provide the information that can make it actionable and can help people really understand, how they can complete the use case or the task at hand faster, cheaper, better. And so that's what we started the company around that. That's been our mission. We are a B2B company. So we offer our services to other companies, primarily financial institutions, marketplaces, and consumer applications. But we focus very, very heavily on what the impact is to the end user. Because at the end of the day, if we actually can help the end user have better outcomes, we know that our partners have better outcomes. So when loans perform better, the lenders do better. If consumers actually stay more engaged in the application, the business that's offering that solution or that financial management solution does better. That's us. That's what we're focused on. And we're really excited about what we've built so far.
Yeah. So you want to reduce friction, not have to redo that, re-up that every 60 days. I remember doing that with one of those apps, and that was very, very frustrating. And yes, the insights were sparse, I got to say. After all the work that you put in, they would then come back to me and sort of say, oh, I see you have 5 credit cards. I think you're approved for the 6th credit card. And it's like, yeah, I think so too, because I have a pretty good credit score and I already have 5 credit cards. That's probably a good reason why I should get another credit card. Yeah, actually solving for that sounds like and it sounds like you have the personal angle there as well. That's always powerful, right? To sort of say, have use cases like right in your life. Now, what would you say is the number one use case that you help solve with this infrastructure for the customers?
Yeah, so the number one use case we help solve is really around allowing the end user to very quickly connect to their accounts, pull up the details of that liability account, whether it's a student loan, credit card, personal loan, auto loan, doesn't matter. Pull those up, share that with a partner or a lender, most likely. Allow that lender to engage with that user in a way where they match them up with the right product, they price that product correctly, and that they can actually fulfill on the promise of that product. To be very specific, if you think about what how we do that for that specific use case is, imagine a scenario where today you might be taking out a loan, and that loan where some or all the funds are going to be used to pay down existing debt. If you think about that scenario, the current process is really difficult. Most of the burden on identifying what your third-party liabilities are, accounts that you're trying to pay down, the rest on the consumer. The consumer's got to dig all this information up. You don't know actually what the balance is on those typically. And even if you're able to find all those things, it typically results in a check being sent to the consumer, something like that. And so what we're able to do is we're able to remove all those manual processes. We're able to remove all those steps. And so that literally with a phone number and date of birth, we can power that entire use case and scenario. Literally a click of a button. And, that's what we believe. So the promise. And when you do that, the loans perform better. The customer has a better experience. You save and remove cost out of the model. And so all boats rise. And so for us, that's one of the use cases that we really like.
That sounds amazing. Now, tell me, what is your favorite customer story?
Yeah, so favorite customer story along those lines, it's a credit union. Credit unions have much better interest rates than let's say your typical institution or even credit cards. And those interest rates, those lower interest rates translate to lower interest rates on things like credit cards. And so a lot of credit union members have these credit cards. The challenge is most of the times those credit cards are not top of wallet. In the credit unions we work with, what we've seen consistently is that about 2/3 of any of their members' balances sit on third-party cards, not on their cards. So one of our client struggles was, how do they get more people to use their card more? One, that would help their members actually get lower interest rates and pay less money. But two, it actually, improve the portfolio performance of their cards. Well, offering balance transfer promotions is a great way to do that. And so this client was offering the ability for their members to transfer the balance from the third-party cards to their card. But as I mentioned just previously, that is a pretty manual and error-prone and costly process.
Yeah.
So we worked with this credit union to create a solution where the user just has to put their phone number of date of birth in. We will automatically discover all of their existing third-party cards. We will then go and get the real-time balances on each of those cards, and then allow the user, the member, to decide which of those cards make sense for them to participate in the 0% balance transfer offer. And then when that transfer needs to take place, we're able to, with a simple API call and visually a click of a button, transfer those balances within 24 hours. No checks, nothing else. It's all done electronically. And so that use case and that specific customer, really excited about, because we can see directly the impact we have on the cost and the user experience and the performance of all those, of the financial product after it's done. So that really resonates with us. And that's what we love to see when we engage with our clients.
I can imagine there's lots of other credit unions out there that would love to have that easy process, because you're right. It's usually a burden, and that's why people don't do it, because they already know it's going to be a hassle, right?
That's right.
Making
right.
it easy, that's what's going to do it. So that is a great customer story. Let's wrap it up there. Thank you so much, Tomas, for being on the episode today.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
Great. And this was another episode of the LendAPI Partner Podcast. We'll see you next time.